Hello everyone, in today's video I'll be doing a video on the recent Oscar-winning Sinners horror movie. Despite I originally wanted to make videos on the Scream videos, I decided to make an exception right here. Since this movie won a few Oscars recently, I thought, good time to make this video on Sinners. For now, here's my video on Sinners. The Scream videos will be done in the near future. First off, congratulations on this movie winning Oscars. Congratulations on Michael B. Jordan for winning Best Actor, Ryan Coogler Best Screenplay. Autumn Darrell Arcapa, I apologize I don't say her name correctly. Congratulations for winning Best Cinematography and for being the first woman in history to win the award for Best Cinematography. And lastly, to film composer Ludwig Göransson, again, I probably butchered his name, I apologize, for winning his third Oscar for Best Original Score. Before diving into my Sinners video, here's a brief summary that could be its own video someday, topic down the road, but for now, here's just a basic analysis right here. Finally, the Academy Award has finally given some recognition for horror movies. While I don't know the whole details or history behind conspiracy theories about how the Academy Awards are not fair, don't respect the horror genre, and do not give the genre enough credit. But as a horror fan, I learned this from my friends of the horror community, and it just didn't occur to me later in my life as a horror fan or reading about why the horror genre gets a bad reputation and it's not a respectable genre. On a brief note, it's a hit-and-miss complicated history on horror movies in the Academy Awards. Movies like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Omen, An American Werewolf in London, The Silence of the Lambs, Misery, and Black Swan are all examples of horror movies that won Oscars in the past in history. Whereas other horror movies like Psycho, Get Out, The Sixth Sense, Carrie, and The Substance were nominated for Oscars, but none of them did not win any awards. Fans thought that those movies deserved to win awards. Horror fans think that these movies did not win any awards because of the Academy for not giving enough respect or credit to the horror genre. Horror fans have also said that movies like The Shining, The Thing, Pearl, Hereditary, Midsommar are examples that these movies should have been at least nominated for Oscars, but instead were snubbed for not getting any Oscar nominations. On a short answer, the reason why The Shining and The Thing did not get any Oscar nomination award for the time was because of their releases. Both these movies were financial failures and were not well received by critics and audience at the time of their releases, but later ended up gaining cult followings years later. Lesson learned right here, just because a certain movie, no matter the genre, is nominated for an Academy Award, that does not mean it's guaranteed to win an Oscar all the time. Now on to Sinners. Sinners directed by Ryan Coogler, prior to this directed movies like Fruitvale Station, Creed, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I said this a long time ago in my Creed 2 video. This guy's been one of my favorite directors in the last decade. He's a very talented film director. I look forward to see what more he has to come in the near future, what else he has to offer as a director. So far, I think Sinners is his masterpiece, but I could change my mind in the near future. Sinners is a period vampire horror movie that takes place in the early 1930s during Prohibition. Twin brothers Smoke and Stack, former gangsters and are former World War I veterans who formerly worked with Al Capone, come back to their hometown in the South to open up a nightclub. Smoke and Stack asked their cousin Sammy, who is a blues musician, to be a performer at the nightclub, but Sammy's father forbids his son, thinking his music is a sin of the devil. The nightclub opened and it's a success, but vampires attack the club unexpectedly. A night of drinking, singing, dancing, and sex turns into a bloodbath of fighting an army of vampires. Watching this movie in the movie theaters, I did not expect a first 1 hour and a half period drama movie when it turns into another genre. Just like From Dusk Till Dawn is one example right there. This seems to be hit or miss sometimes from horror fans or movie fans in general. But let me assure you, this will not be the first and the last time you will see this happen in a movie. Despite the first time being a 1930s Great Depression Prohibition drama period movie, once the vampire show it builds up well and it's well worth the wait. But you can make the debate that you took out one of these genres out. This could have been just one genre, but sometimes certain movies can be more than just one genre sometimes. Sinners is my second favorite horror movie of the decade so far. My number one favorite horror movie this decade was Ty West's Pearl with Mia Goth. As I said before, sorry for the reiterate right here, the first half of the movie may seem like a 1930s Great Depression period film and Jim Crow, but as a horror fan, it was worth waiting when we see the vampires attack the nightclub. What captivated me about Sinner was that it was not another type of vampire movie like Dracula or Nosferatu. I love both those movies, but it's getting repetitive with Dracula being remade over and over again. It does take some of the usual format and elements of how to kill a vampire, killed by stake in the heart, sunlight, or garlic, but it's still well done. The part when the characters use garlic to test themselves on whether or not they are vampires, this was basically taken from John Carpenter's The Thing remake and Robert Rodriguez's 1998 The Faculty. Another famous vampire cliche shows how vampires cannot get inside your home unless you invite them in. This was new, fresh, and original. Michael B. Jordan did an excellent job in both roles playing twin brothers. It shows why he deserved the Oscar for playing two twin brothers who are complete opposites. Smoke and Stack are yin and yang. Stack is laid back and a goofball. Smoke is all serious business. Stack's relationship with Mary, played by Haley Steinfeld, was back in a time when interracial couples were not accepted back in the 1930s. Despite Mary's biracial because she mentions that her father was African American and her mom was white, her mother was the nurse that delivered both Stack and Smoke when they were born. Mary said that she practically grew up with Smoke and Stack. We all see that Smoke has an estranged relationship with his wife for being gone so long for working with Al Capone and not being around much. On the night of the vampire attack, she gets bitten by a vampire. Stack made a promise earlier that if she gets bitten, kill her. When Stack's twin brother turns into a vampire, like in any horror movie, once a loved one's soul is gone, it's hard to kill their loved ones when they are turned into a monster. Smoke finds out the club they opened was a slaughterhouse, not a juke joint. After a night of hell, Smoke kills the clan and dies getting shot and goes to heaven to see his wife again. When I saw this in the movie theaters, I was like, good, kill these low-life scumbags. Despite a great performance by Michael B. Jordan, he's admitted in an interview that he's not a fan of the horror movie genre. He makes the list of another actor who acted in a horror movie, but is not a fan of the genre. Sometimes you read a lot about actors who are okay in acting in horror movies, knowing that it's all fake and make-believe, but sometimes they don't want to watch horror movies because of being too scared sometimes. Well, good thing I turned down this movie, because Lord knows who else will be holding that Oscar trophy instead of Michael B. Jordan. Think about that. The movie is a metaphor for the great jazz musician Robert Johnson, who was one of the great jazz blues musicians, and he's a famous urban legend how he sold his soul to the devil to become one of the great jazz players. And the movie points out some culture, religions, believe that singing, music, dancing, sex, and drinking are sins. The vampires are also metaphors of the Ku Klux Klan, and besides being metaphors of the Ku Klux Klan, the vampires are also metaphors of Satanism, selling your soul to the devil. When Sam is offered a deal for his music, singing voice, and his soul to the devil from Remy the Irish Vampire, this right here was the example reference of Robert Johnson. When Stack turns into a vampire, he makes a promise to his brother Smoke he will not turn Sam into a vampire and will let him live his life. The movie ends years later, 1992, when Sam is old on the verge of death. He sees Stack and Mary the first time in over 70 years since that night. Stack offers him immortality so he can keep playing music and touring. Sam refuses and decides to live what's left of his life until he dies. Stack respects his wishes. It's an example of how immortality is not what it's cracked up to be. When you become immortal, the people you knew from your past are gone, and you are all alone. Before they leave, Sammy asks Smoke, despite the crazy night before that incident, he tells him it was still one of the best days of his life, and asks Smoke if he felt the same way. Smoke says, no doubt about it. Last time I saw the sun, last time I saw my brother, and for a few hours, we was free. When I heard that line in the movie theaters, I thought I wanted to applaud, thinking, that is the purest poetic justice ending line I ever heard in a movie, at least in my own opinion. As I wrap up this video on a brief note, I wrote an essay for my 21st century online class on Sinners and why the horror genre needs more respect. If you're interested in reading that essay, and the link in the description. What I said in this video was some things I summoned from that essay, but I also made a fake, I guess you could say, a billboard post of the movie poster Sinners and an Academy Award trophy and listing all the awards Sinners was nominated for. My advice, even if you're not a horror fan, there are some great classes that should be rewatched and analyzed, explore deep, darker meaning behind horror movie classics. That was my video on Sinners. See you all next time. And once again, congratulations to Sinners for winning the Oscar.